on NFL Live. Jay Ajayi joins us live from London. And one of the best segments for hypothetical minds out there. We play a little quarterback roulette today. It is the AFC and the NFC West. Plenty of quarterbacks got big deals this offseason. Matty Ice, you may remember, $100 million guaranteed. Kirk Cousins, $84 million. There's also Jimmy G and Alex Smith. But today we show some love to the defensive guys as Vikings defensive end Danielle Hunter got a 5-year extension worth $40 million guaranteed. That is the second most guaranteed money given to a defensive player this offseason. Welcome to NFL Live. Josina Anderson, Dan Graziano, two-time Super Bowl champ, Damien Woody. I'm Jac Collinsworth. We'll start with Dan. In this Danielle Hunter extension, how is it being received around the league, first of all? What's everybody saying about it?
You know, you talk to agents and people around the league that are involved in contract negotiations. They want to know why it wasn't higher, right? A 23-year-old edge rusher with 19.5 sacks the last 2 years. A deal that averages $14.4 million a year. I mean, it must look like monster money to him entering the fourth year of his NFL career, but, you know, big deals coming on the pass rusher market for guys like Jadeveon Clowney, Khalil Mack, and Aaron Donald. You know, there's some thought as to why not wait and sort of draft those guys a little bit, right? I mean, he's not going to get what Clowney and Mack are going to get, but if those guys push the market beyond, Olivier Vernon's sitting there at $17 million a year on a 2-year-old deal. If those guys get 18, 19, 20 plus, all of a sudden maybe the deal goes up a little bit. So you see this a lot in the offseason where a guy doesn't want to wait, wants it taken care of before training camp, but from a purely objective financial standpoint, not really a market mover.
And here's the problem. Wait a couple years. When these numbers start exploding for the pass rushers, because they're going to be 20 mil plus, and he's going to be sitting there like, man, especially if his production starts getting higher, he's going to be like, man, I am severely underpaid. And guess what? They got you locked in.
Well, it's also the position, right? Because that's at a premium when you're talking about guys who are able to get to the quarterback. So at least if you're waiting for a deal like Khalil Mack, Aaron Donald, that perhaps can exceed the market and you can even raise all boats for everybody else. And that's why you might have people, whether from the union or other agents, starting to chime in as far as that money. You got guys like Frank Clark who still haven't got done. There are people that they still could have even addressed on the Minnesota Vikings team that still hadn't been done. And perhaps even if you had waited, maybe got franchise tag, that could have raised your floor as well. So I understand the commentary, but still, at least he does have some money in his pocket. But you know what? Also, Dan, we've been talking about on this set the difference between taking long-term deals versus short-term deals. Yeah. So when you extend the money over this long a period, and yet the team has an option maybe 2 or 3 years to get out of your deal, you still have to stay with them because they own your rights, but yet your money isn't changing. So that's why, again, we keep underlining the importance of the Kirk Cousins deal, because when that's done after 3 years, his $84 million guaranteed is done, and he's also done. He can take another bite at the apple, a la what LeBron James has been doing in the NBA, by comparison to what Carmelo Anthony was doing earlier in his career, taking those longer 5-year, 6-year deals as well. And
just to be clear, I recognize this is easy for us to say, right?
Oh, yeah. You don't got $20 million in your back pocket?
Waves $40 million guaranteed at you. Pretty good chance you're going to want to take it. We're just talking from an objective standpoint, analyzing the market that, as a pass rusher, it seems like it could have been.
So, Damien, Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack, more urgency. Who needs to have it to get those deals done? Which team?
Oakland, because if you look at the Oakland Raiders, outside of Khalil Mack, who's the real ball out there on defense? I can't really think of anyone. So if you're Khalil Mack right now, you got your feet kicked up. You know, you're just waiting for the Oakland Raiders. Oakland Raiders got to come see you at some point, because he's that type of difference maker for that Oakland Raiders defense. And if you're Aaron Donald, why go out there and jump to a deal before Khalil Mack get done? So, you know, that's how these things happen a lot of times. Guys know around the league, they wait and see, okay, I need this guy to sign before I go out there and sign my deal.
Well, and the only issue with that, too, is ideally, yes, you would like for him, you know, to wait. Obviously, Aaron Donald, they've got other resources on that defense with Ndamukong Suh, what have you. The Raiders are in more need of Khalil Mack. But the issue is, even though theoretically it should be that way, if you're waiting, and Aaron Donald is still not getting his and you still get closer to the season, then it also becomes a timing issue because you want to get paid. Obviously, the closer you get to the season, the higher you're incurring that risk of injury once you start playing and it doesn't happen, or maybe you end up up like Aaron Donald where it rolls over into another year, so all of those things can come into play. But ideally, you want the other one to happen so you can set your floor a la what Aaron Rodgers, as you mentioned in our green room talk, was doing with Matt Ryan waiting on his deal.
The waiting game has been played for far too long for one man named Le'Veon Bell. Still waiting on that bag of his. So we'll see if he can get it, or at least if he is getting any closer.
Hey, did you off the bag?
Our ESPN Jeremy Fowler. Jeremy, July 16th is the deadline for a long-term extension. What is the latest on these negotiations right now?
Well, Jack, speaking of bags, the Steelers have offered Bell 2 big bags dating back to last summer, starting at $13.3 million per year, working their way up slightly. Bell has turned them down, and there has not been much major progress since then. Now, Bell is hopeful that, hey, we've come this far. Let's meet at a sweet spot that takes into account my value as a player. But the Steelers feel we've put together a good offer. We don't want to set a crazy running back precedent despite Bell's obvious greatness. And so from what I'm told, the Steelers are in a position where they're thinking we might not offer any more money. This could be a take it or leave it situation for Le'Veon. Now, we'll see if that changes coming up to that July 16th deadline, which side will move first. But Bell has made clear to me this offseason he does not plan to take anything less than $14.5 million per year on an extension because that's what his franchise tag number is.
Give the man his money. Jeremy, thank you, brother. As we move now, we go to a breaking news story. The Carolina Panthers, former Carolina Panthers, soon-to-be owner Jerry Richardson. A little breaking news. Dan, what is the latest with this?
Yeah, the NFL announced its findings in its investigation into the allegations of workplace misconduct against Jerry Richardson, as you mentioned, on his way out as the Panthers owner. The approval of that. The sale of that team to David Tepper was about a month ago now. But finding Jerry Richardson $2.75 million, there's a whole report on it that the league released. It says the improper conduct was limited to Mr. Richardson, said it did substantiate the claims against him, and, of course, that he also removed himself right after the allegations came out from day-to-day operations of the team and then sold the team. So a $2.75 million fine. For historical context, remember Donald Sterling, the former Los Angeles Clippers owner, he was fined $2.5 million by the NBA when all that went down about 4 years ago, and he, of course, had to sell his team as well. So that, for the NFL at least, puts a bow on the Panthers investigation.
Dropping a bucket, huh? 2.5 compared to what he's selling the team for.
Are you talking about your wallet? Yeah.
No, but I'm just saying, like, as a former player, when you're getting fined by the league, like, those fines are hefty.
Yes.
I mean, hefty as it relates to the player's salary. So, I'm just saying.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to take a moment here and actually applaud the league on this because it would have been very easy with him leaving and kind of leaving that seat as owner to kind of let it go, let it subside, wink, wink, or what have you. And we're all critical of the league for various different things and how they handle, discipline with conduct off the field and what have you. But in this case, them actually incurring the fine, not forgetting about it, following up on the claims that were against them in this instance, I think we should highlight it.
And
that
it's
point.
in the release that the fine money will go to support the work of organizations dedicated to addressing race and gender-based issues in and outside the workplace. So people sometimes wonder where the fine money goes. In this case, that's the answer the NFL's giving.
There's a lot of news today, Josina. I want to come to you on this one. The brother of Giants cornerback Janoris Jenkins has been charged with aggravated manslaughter. William H. Jenkins was arrested in the death of Roosevelt Renee, whose body was discovered Tuesday in the New Jersey home of Giants cornerback. William Jenkins is currently in custody in New York, and the investigation is ongoing. So, Josina, what more can you add to the story at this time?
Well, the first thing I want to say is, when I was talking to people initially when this was starting to break who had been in contact with Janoris, they were telling me that Janoris seemed calm. He was saying he was good, he was okay. So that was giving me the feeling like, okay, I wasn't expecting for this to be laid at his feet in terms of the main charge here, right? And then since then, we have found out that his brother obviously has been connected with this, has that charge of the aggravated manslaughter, and that initially they were trying to get in contact with him. They were able to find him in Geneva, New York. They were able to interview him early on. And I think right now what we're trying to underline is what the cause of death is for sure. And I was told by police sources that the medical examiner Arizona's being very conservative with that. They want to wait till they have additional toxicology reports just to make sure. But even from the beginning, guys, yesterday, I was told, and the sentiment was conveyed to me that they felt pretty confident in their direction of the investigation in terms of who they were talking to, that this was going to move pretty quickly. And then you saw that person of interest identified William Jenkins and where we are right now.
And we'll, of course, continue to give you every detail we have as we get it. Live from London, we are going to be joined by the great Jay Ajayi, and there he is, Super Bowl champ. Jay, first of all, what brings you to London, man?
Yeah, what's going on? Yeah, we just finished camp, broke like last week, so I'm out here kind of enjoying my summer break, getting to see some fam. Always good to come back home over here to London, getting some training in as well, and just enjoying, these World Cup games while I'm out here.
Where do you stand, Jay, on the World Cup and the big game with England and Belgium coming up here? A lot of people think it's better to lose. Given the way the bracket is unfolding, where do you stand on today's game?
I'm never one to advocate in losing on purpose, So, definitely hoping those guys put their best foot forward out there, and whoever ends up being the matchup, so be it. You know what I'm saying? They gotta go. To be the best, you got to beat the best and beat who's in front of you. So whoever they go up against, they just got to handle it.
Jay, Josina, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Hey, what's going on?
Yes, I want to kind of flip it back to your days in Miami. They've gotten rid of a lot of the stars there, from yourself to Jarvis Landry and Dominic Sue. There's been a lot of talk about Adam Gase and the culture that he's trying to establish in Miami. So I'm just curious what your thought process about that is, since you were one of those people that had to leave, and how much that has to do with you all as players, or how much that has to do with Gase and his ability to adapt to star players.
Yeah, to be honest, I try not to, put too much thinking towards my time, that was in Miami. I cherish what went on over there. Obviously, what we tried to do didn't work out. And, they're trying to do a new thing over there. But, with their culture, they're trying to, cultivate. And, I'm a Super Bowl champion. And
you sure are, Jay. So, you sure are.
Yeah.
So, Jay, you get there midseason with a trade, and you jump right in. Obviously, things go really well. But looking ahead to this year, what's different now, having a whole offseason in the Eagles program? What's going to be different about you and your role in that offense versus what it was last year when you got there?
Yeah, when I first got to Philly, it was definitely like a whirlwind of things going on. Just got thrown in there, had to learn as many plays as I could and get a grasp of it as much as I could, with the help of Deuce and the other RBs. But now, getting the luxury of being in the off-season program for a full off-season and being with Deuce, I think he's been someone that's definitely helped my game just in the little time that I was with him during the year. So I've been really excited to get an off-season with him and just, have him teach me so much more stuff. And I just feel like the more I can be around this program and team, I can just get even better grasp of it, and it should help me a lot for this year.
And Jay, real quick, I'm curious how the defection of LeGarrette Blount to Detroit impacts you all, because he welcomed you, with open arms when you came up there. You all were able to feed off one another. Now he's gone. So how does that impact your tread through the regular season?
Yeah, obviously we understand it's a business and guys have to make business decisions for themselves. We loved LG. I loved LG, great big brother to us and to me, and a role model for our room. But he had to go do his thing, and now he's in Detroit. So obviously, it just opens up another spot for us guys in the room to compete. And that's what we're about. That's what I'm about, is competing. And I'm just ready to, get back for another season to just showcase what I can do, in a lead role and do my best to help this team win games.
Jay, off the Super Bowl, there's a new member of your team as you sign with Rosenhaus Sports. Why the new agent? Why the move this offseason?
Yeah, just been doing my due diligence and obviously understanding, what year I'm going into. I just decided to make a business decision. It was simple as that. Just make the best business decision that I felt was right for me moving forward. And now that that's kind of out of the way, I'm just ready to get back to focusing on football and letting everything else play itself out.
We may do a little speed round with you if you're cool with that. We're gonna a little explanation may be good for the folks at home. Because there's a little delay. We're gonna do a little bit of this. We'll do London or Philly. What might you say is the most passionate fans, Jay?
Okay. Passionate fans.
Get it right, Jay.
I have to say Philly, just because. Oh yeah, it's quick. My bad, quick. Yeah, I'll just say Philly. They punched a horse, so
they punched a horse.
Hey, crazy.
I think we're gonna go now.
Leave it there.
We're gonna go Philly cheesesteak or fish and chips. What might you say?
I'll go with the fish and chips. I'm not. I did cheesesteak a little bit, but I'm more.
Gordon Ramsay will be happy about that answer. There you go.
this one. See, there's some straight tripper uppers here. We go second ring or England winning the World Cup title. What would you take?
I'm selfish. Second ring. I'm selfish. Definitely.
Jay,
but they're going to get the World Cup too, though.
Jay, you look good in London, man. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the World Cup, and best of luck this upcoming year.
Tell Neymar we say hi.
You guys are good.
Take care, man. Welcome back to NFL Live. We have more breaking news. This on Jameis Winston and his suspension. Dan, what are you hearing right now?
Yes, confirmed that the NFL is suspending Buccaneers quarterback Jameis Winston for 3 games for violation of the personal conduct policy, as our Adam Schefter reported a week ago that they were intending to. I'm also told via a source that Jameis does not plan any further appeals, so it looks like he will, in fact, miss the first 3 games of the 2018 season.
This is just a big piece of news when you have this type of suspension on a quarterback in the NFL and the nature of the allegations stemming from an Uber driver accusing him of groping her 2 months after his rookie season was completed. And so to actually take the suspension in this case, and as Dan just highlighted, not appeal this further, the implications of, to me, what that's saying is very big, and it's also very disappointing, not only because of the nature of the allegations, which is paramount to everything, but also the trajectory of where Jameis Winston's career needed to go, particularly in this year, a very crucial year for him and the Buccaneers offense.
This is troubling. I mean, because this has been a pattern with Jameis Winston. Coming from college in Florida State, there's been incidences with women at Florida State with Jameis Winston. Red flags for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to look at. He took a chance. Obviously, this incident happened while he was a player with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, if you're the Bucs, what do you do?
Well, definitely.
What do you do right now? I mean, this is something you had to think about. I mean, this is the CEO of your franchise. Supposed to be the face of your franchise. I mean, some hard decisions are going to have to be.
What would you do?
Personally, I would cut him.
Wow.
I would cut him personally. I mean, there's been too many things that's led up to this, and I don't have any. Me personally, I have zero tolerance when it comes to this specific type of issue. I'm not relitigating what happened at Florida State, but here it is again in the National Football League. And like you said, Josina, the policy is 6 games, but it's been knocked down to 3. So are you admitting guilt in this situation? And
to that end, let's go ahead and read this statement, because Jameis Winston, I think this will help illuminate the conversation and where we want to go with this, has released a statement, and it was obtained by NFL Network. And I just want to add this saying, quote, the NFL informed me today that I will be suspended for the first 3 games of the season. First and foremost, I would like to say I'm sorry to the Uber driver for the position I put you in. It is uncharacteristic of me, and I genuinely apologize. In the first 2.5 years, years. My life has been filled with experiences, opportunities, and events that have helped me grow, mature, and learn, including the fact that I have eliminated alcohol from my life. I know I have to hold myself to a higher standard on and off the field, and that I have a responsibility to my family, community, and teammates to live above the platform with which God has blessed me. I apologize to my teammates, the Buccaneers organization, and fans for letting them down and for not being able to be out there for the first 3 games of the season. Although I am disappointed in the NFL's decision, I understand the NFL's process, and I embrace this as an opportunity to take advantage of the resources available to help me achieve the goals that I have for myself. I now look forward to putting this behind me, and I will continue to work hard every day to be a positive influence in my community and be the best person, teammate, and leader that I can be. So I just want to say real quick, Damien, what strikes me about that statement is that he underlines to the Uber driver, I apologize for the position that I put you in. And it's very interesting to me that he would say that, and also good that he offered that apology. But there seems to me to be an acceptance of accountability and to some degree of guilt in this situation here, particularly with what Dan was saying initially, that he's not carrying over an appeal. And what we don't want to get here when you are reaching back to the history of what happened at Florida State, you don't want to start getting into talking about different degrees of sexual assault. You know, touching or doing anything with a woman in their private area, you know, something that's even more, you know, worse than that is not great or not good to begin with at all.
I'm going to say this, and I'm going to be just real blunt.
Yeah.
I'm tired of the excuses. Mm-hmm. You in the statement you read out alcohol and all that stuff. I'm sorry. I mean, but as an adult, I have adult beverage, but that don't mean that I'm going to have the license to go out there and just go touch random females and do all this crazy stuff. When does it stop? We've had these things happen at Florida State. Mm-hmm. Then you come to the league and this happens. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to hear anything about alcohol and all this other stuff. When is it going to stop? Honestly. Mm-hmm. You are the CEO, the face of the franchise of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you can't keep your hands to yourself as a grown man?
Particularly.
I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of hearing excuses for bad behavior. There's no excuse for bad behavior. Mm-hmm. If I'm the Buccaneers, you got to go. I'm sorry. I'm moving on. Yeah, will it hurt my franchise? Maybe. I don't know. But, I mean, he's already 18-27 as a quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm sorry. I got to restore some type of order in my own house.
So what we're not going to, as a result of there not being an appeal, what we're not going to get on this is the level of detail that we got about, say, the Ezekiel Elliott investigation. Remember, the details on that came out to us after an appeal hearing, and the documents that were involved in that appeal hearing were so, I mean, we'll, you know, obviously there will be reporting done on this. We'll dig on it, and we'll try and find out more. But what happened last year with Ezekiel Elliott... But, Dan, that's at Jameis's
discretion.
Correct. So I'm not, this isn't an offer of any kind of defense or an excuse. Right. It's more of sort of explaining to the viewers what might be different about this situation going forward. 3 games as opposed to 6. My understanding is there have been discussions going on for some time now, people on all sides, Jameis Winston's side, the NFLPA, the NFL, where this 3 games has kind of been reached as, you know, a decision by the NFL. This is an appropriate punishment based on whatever the facts are that they uncovered in their investigation. We know from the account of eyewitnesses, Ronald Darby of the Eagles, who was there that night, and the reporting that was done by Outside the Lines last week, that this was a situation where there was some confusion as to, you know, a lot of partying and alcohol, et cetera, and you know, how many Uber rides there were that night, who was in the car, et cetera. So it seems like there's some degree of murkiness here that the NFL did not believe it had in the Ezekiel Elliott case. And that's just, again, that is not talking about Jameis Winston specifically as a person or his actions, just this situation and why, if people are out there wondering why this is 3 games, how it came to that, hopefully that sheds a little bit of light.
Damien, are you surprised from the league's perspective that it's only 3 games?
Well, the league came on the policy, right? 6 games. This has been something from a domestic violence, you know, aspect. This was like huge for the NFL. 6 games, right? We're gonna be adamant about the 6 games. But now it's 3.
Well, let me just add in there. When they made the amendment to the policy in 2014 after the Ray Rice case, yes, they did add that enhancement where you're supposed to have a 6-game suspension in cases of sexual assault, domestic violence, family abuse, all of those other things. That the language also says that, that can vary based on mitigating or aggravating circumstances. So that is obviously what they're leaning into in this situation, not to mention also that there's a he said, she said component of this as well. But I think, to me, what makes this stand out is that the lack of explanation given on Jameis's part as far as the details, because what I'm trying to say here is if you are 100% innocent, you're going forth with that appeal and you're making sure that you have those details out there so everybody knows your hand was nowhere near someone's inappropriate area doing inappropriate things. So the fact that the statement, although it was well composed, does not have those details in it and is missing that part of the explanation as far as exactly what happened, given the nature of the allegations, you're leaving questions there that, don't raise, good answers.
And look, this is... Again, we're in a situation where everyone on all sides seems to admit that alcohol was consumed. You could have a situation, we're getting a little far afield here, which is dangerous, where the player says, I don't remember if I did it or not, right? And that's a possible thing. And that is not an excuse. Absolutely not an excuse, and that's why he deserves his punishment if he was involved in something like this.
Wait,
and
did he
to
say
Damien's
that?
Point, no, I'm saying if the alcohol, you're saying why is the statement unclear? It may well be that his memory's unclear. I mean, we don't know the details. My point is, you're responsible for what you do out there, and this is the consequence that he's dealing with now. And going forward, he'll continue to deal with these consequences because if he does, look, if the statement's to be believed and he's made changes to his life, and this is 2.5 years ago, and you move on, good for him. But that doesn't mean it's okay what's happened here, and that's what the NFL's saying with the suspension.
Would anything in Winston's past be considered when the league decided to give him a 3-game suspension instead of the 6?
According to the letter of the personal conduct policy, it can be. You can treat a player or a team employee under the personal conduct policy as a repeat offender based on actions that occurred prior to his affiliation with the NFL. That language is written into the NFL's personal conduct policy. Whether that factored in here, again, we're waiting for an official statement from Roger Goodell and the NFL to explain. Maybe there will be details in terms of what the mitigating factors were that got it from 6 to 3. It certainly would be nice if the league's trying to establish consistency on a policy like this if they did give us some of those details.
And I just also want to say, too, at least when it comes to Jameis Winston's on-the-field stuff, because we mentioned that this particular event happened 2 months after his rookie season. At least on the field, you did see an evolution from Jameis Winston, also in the way that he was trying to establish himself more as a leader on the field, in the way that he was dealing, with the media. You did see, some growth there. So I want to completely just, not add the whole spectrum of things that we have seen from him throughout his duration in the NFL. But going back to Damien Woody's point, the fact that this still happened and it took this long to, get disciplined on it up to this point is just still not good, particularly when you consider it in the context of everything that happened coming from Florida State to the National Football League.
In your opinion, Damien, how much should his past be considered not only by the league but by everyone in this situation?
I don't think you can exclude it. I really don't. I mean, because wouldn't it show like a pattern? It would show a pattern. Like, I'm just going to boil this down into like really just basic things. Like, you don't see this. I just feel like you don't see this happening. Why is this stuff always happening to you? Why is this pattern of behavior? Why does it keep following you? Why? Explain that to me. Explain that to the organization. Explain that to your fans. Why are these type of things continuously following you around? It's troubling. It's maddening. And if I'm the Bucs organization, I'm like, man, we invested a number 1 pick in you. A number 1 pick. Despite the red flags, the possible red flags and all that, we invested a number 1 pick in you.
That is true.
And then here it is. You're in the NFL, and it pops up, and something pops up again. And I just keep hammering. You're the CEO of the franchise. It's just inexcusable, in my opinion. And that's why I said I would just cut bait and move on. Period.
Do you agree, Josina?
And I was just about to say we, should consider the financial implications of that, right, Dan? Because you want to talk about the money that they would owe him the next year and what you would have to consider based off of, maybe cutting him now and what you're facing financially next year.
Guaranteed money this year coming in the high $3.8 million range, I believe. Next year they have a $20.9 million option on him that they've already picked up, but that fifth-year rookie option is only guaranteed against injury up until the day one of the 2019 league year. So, Damien, if they wanted to cut him at the end of this year and he's healthy, they could and not commit to that $20.9 million. So we'll see what the Buccaneers do going forward.
And just because you did ask me that question, and let me at least try to be definitive on that, I think that, it's so hard for me to cap someone's future and to castigate them, with the narrative that can, shadow them for the rest of their career, their adulthood, or their path. So it's not my instinct to ever do that. So, but at the same time, I understand the nature of the allegations and what he doesn't seem to be appealing with relation to those allegations. So I guess my answer is that I would want to hear the rest of the story in terms of all of the components, the mitigating factors, the aggravating factors. I want to hear everything before I answer that question.
AARP can help you become your healthiest self. It's why we offer health tips for your body and your brain. So take on today and every day with AARP. Learn how at takeontoday.aarp.
Welcome back to NFL Live. We are still reacting to the news that Jameis Winston has been suspended by the league for 3 games. We want to continue this story. One component we did not touch on yet. What does Josina, I want to come to you on this. For Ronald Darby, his accounts of the story, how does this factor in?
Well, I think what we're trying to illuminate here is that in the process of the investigation, that the NFL was interviewing multiple people, that including Winston and other people who were with him that night, or even said that they were with him. That includes Eagles cornerback Ronald Darby. Now, initially, there was an account saying that Jameis Winston was in the back seat of this Uber car with Ronald Darby, and that he was never in the front. And then later, via a report from outside the lines, another account had come from Brandon Banks saying that at some point, yes, Jameis Winston was in fact alone with the Uber driver. And then there's some additional context to that there may have been multiple rides that night. So, in fact, various things might be true. But I think the thing to underline there is that Ronald Darby's account was beginning to fall apart in terms of what was actually true and what was not true. So just the actual component, one, of not being truthful, completely forthright. And then I think in the statement, that I'm also getting ready to read here in a second, just failure to report in terms of notifying the league immediately, and the notification coming to the league like 8 months after the fact of when the actual incident occurred.
Gotcha. So just so we're clear on this, I was doing reporting on this last week, spoke to a source on Friday and with direct knowledge of this, and asked the question, like, if with this Brandon Banks stuff coming out, is Ronald Darby in some trouble? Did he mislead the league, or is his account proving not to be credible? I was told unequivocally no. Ronald Darby's not the subject of any kind of investigation.
Yes.
He's an eyewitness here. So the sense I got from talking to people around this situation was that yes, maybe more than one ride, so that maybe Darby's account wasn't necessarily, untrue if Banks' account is. The league talks about having other evidence, including telephone records, electronic devices. You can track where an Uber goes, and so you can tell where the driver was at specific times, and not necessarily who she picked up, but you can tell whether her story holds up in terms of those details. So obviously an extensive investigation that the league leaned on a number of things, including eyewitness testimony and other evidence.
And quickly, we do want to get Adam Schefter in on the conversation. We have Adam on the phone right now. Adam, what more are you hearing about the Winston suspension?
Look, I think that these were ongoing discussions, and I think the NFL did not feel there was enough evidence to warrant a 6-game suspension under the personal conduct policy. And I think that they were in discussions for a 4-game suspension for the last couple of weeks that eventually got lowered to 3. I don't want to say it was a settlement because it wasn't a settlement, but I think by Jameis Winston agreeing to accept the 3 games, I think the NFL came off its number of 4, which it originally was planning to suspend Jameis Winston for, which means he will return after missing games in New Orleans, and then at home against the Eagles and Steelers. He will return for Week 4 against the Chicago Bears. Now, in the release today, the NFL made it very clear, and I'll read from the release, any future violation of the personal conduct policy will result in a more substantial discipline, including a potential ban from the NFL. So if Jameis Winston does anything more in the future that the league considers a violation of the personal conduct policy, he's facing a potential ban from the NFL. Now, again, he came in with some questions about the decisions that he made, and it has come back to haunt him in this particular case because Jameis Winston was intoxicated on the night that the incident is in dispute. And the NFL says he did touch the female Uber driver, that is not in dispute. So we have a guy who's out, who is intoxicated, who is with a female driver, who put himself in jeopardy and made a bad decision here, admits to making that bad decision, and now the league is suspending him 3 games with the idea that if any further issues take place in the future, any further ban from the NFL going forward. And it looks in a very challenging situation. People asking questions about Jensen, who's the fifth track and facing a critical juncture in his career in terms of securing a new deal. But again, we have one of the marquee suspensions of this offseason. It seems like there's one every year involving some player, whether it's Tom Brady or Ezekiel Elliott or Jameis Winston or Julian Edelman. This is the latest one that mars this offseason, and the Buccaneers will now have to make do without Jameis Winston for the first 3 games of the 2018 season.
Adam, given the history that does exist, how do you expect the Buccaneers specifically to handle this situation?
Well, let me say this to you, that I believe that the Buccaneers are disappointed in the decision that Jameis made here in terms of being intoxicated and alone in an Uber with a woman that night and putting his hands on her. But I also believe that they still firmly back their quarterback and believe in the good that he has done. And if you look back over this past year or two, it has been recounted to me that he has done more than 70 acts, volunteer acts, of goodwill, helping in the community, giving his time in ways in which the team is not even sponsoring or connected to these events. I can tell you, look, we've got an incident here that's a blemish on his resume and a blemish on his character. There is no questioning that, particularly with someone with his history. But I also think the team is actually behind the person, an individual that they believe Jameis Winston has turned out to be. Now, again, if there are any other incidents, it's going to be a huge issue for him and the team going forward. But right now, I think the team is behind him, and I think that the team believes that, again, it is willing to accept what it believes is appropriate punishment right now.
Adam, we do appreciate your time on this. We want to get to this statement here from the Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have released a statement on Jameis that reads, Jameis Winston and all members of our organization are expected to conduct themselves in accordance with the personal conduct policy of the NFL. We are disappointed that Jameis put himself in a position that has been found to violate the policy and accept today's decision by the commissioner. And now Josina has also a statement that has been put out by the league. What are you hearing from the NFL?
Well, do we want to actually go through the entire statement, guys?
Here's the part that I think is really important.
I know this
right
part
here,
is definitely
right?
clear, but I just want to make sure. Hold on, give me a second. I just want to make sure. Do we want to read the entire statement, guys? Okay. Well, I think what Dan is trying to get here is that included in this statement, it says, as a result, the investigation has concluded that Winston violated the personal conduct policy by touching the driver in an inappropriate and sexual manner without her consent, and that disciplinary action was necessary and appropriate. So obviously that's the part that definitely stands out, in addition to everything that Adam Schefter just said about certain parts of the release.
I think that's key, right? I mean, it's a long release and it's available if people want to read the whole thing. But I mean, that jumped out to me, Josina, because we were just talking before the last break, before the statement came out. You know, what is it that mitigated this down from the standard of 6 games down to 3? The answers to that are not in this statement, and I remain curious, and we'll, as I'm sure a lot of us will, try to find out more. But if they found that her account was consistent and credible, and that he did touch her in an inappropriate and sexual manner, I guess that the lingering question out of this is why 3 games and not more.
So you know what that brings me back to is was the statement that Jameis Winston then gave enough? Given this component of the release where they're asserting that they know definitively that he touched the driver inappropriately and in a sexual manner without her consent, Damien, has Jameis said enough in his statement? Because to me, if this part is in the release saying all of that, Jameis, we need to hear more, because just including a little bit of a wink at the fact that you have taken alcohol out of your life to somewhat suggest, is what it kind of sounds like to me, that may be a possible reason for your behavior is not enough. For me, as a female, also hearing that, and just anybody who obviously doesn't approve of a behavior like this, regardless of your gender or sex, I think that you need a little bit more of an explanation as to what happened there.
Sound like to me, leagues, that's like definition of sexual assault. You're inappropriately touching someone without their consent. You change the policy to 6 games. So what bumps it from 6 to 3? To me, that's what's maddening about the league. Mm-hmm. There's no like consistency or like transparency. Why did you go from 6 to 3? When you said in your own statement that her story is credible. So for me, like NFL, somebody has some explaining to do. Mm-hmm. You wrote it in your own statement. So somebody needs to explain where you go from 6 to 3. Because that's been the chief concern that most people have had with the National Football League. Transparency and consistency. Be consistent.
And let's take the other component of what Adam Schefter was saying, because he said, despite everything that we're hearing, it is his sense based on people that he's talked to that despite everything that has happened, that the team still has a strong backing of their quarterback based on everything that they've seen from this part forward, his work in the community, the evolution that we've seen on the film, how he's established himself as a leader. But when you include this particular language in your release asserting the veracity, the credibility of what the Uber driver was saying, my concern, too, is how is the community going to react? How are women's groups going to react? Because we're now in the full thrust of this Me Too movement and all of that. So even though you back him, and trust me, I understand, because to actually have the interpersonal interaction with Jameis, he's gracious. He's humble. He offers his time. You can see the growth as a leader, so you can understand that. But you have to compartmentalize this accusation and this suspension and this discipline associated with that as well. So where does this go in terms of how, people in the community, social activists, Me Too movement people, all those people in terms of adding their voices to the conversation, then how strong is that backing going to be? Where does it go from here, particularly when you're trying to include your thought process of what his future is with the organization?
Accountability. Everyone should have it. If you don't have it, try it sometime. Mm-hmm. Be accountable. Mm-hmm. Be accountable for your actions. Like I said, league plainly put it in his statement, but here we are. You made the rules. NFL, you said it. 6 games, right? And now we're down to 3. So how did that happen?
And I'm just wondering, too, Damien, when you're asking for transparency, as we have asked for with this particular topic, when we talked about it last week and the news came out that a potential 3-game suspension was coming down, we sat on here with Louis Riddick and other people talking about the need for transparency. I'm just wondering how much of this is the lack of transparency also with the protection of this major star quarterback in the NFL. Because you have a choice here when you release this statement. You knew that when you put this part in the statement, that part was going to stand out. And yet you chose with this statement, and also Jameis chose with the statement that was released, to limit what was offered in addition to this being said here. So to me, that also begs the question of how much are you weighing transparency versus protection of the shield or protection of the athlete as well?
Football feels insignificant at this point, to put it plainly. The Buccaneers, if they are out without Jameis Winston for 3 games, the backup quarterback will be Ryan Fitzpatrick, who has, of course, bounced around. Damien, you have said that you would cut him right now, talking about Jameis Winston. Who are the Buccaneers without him?
That's a great question. I mean, Buccaneers have some nice pieces. They've made some additions. They have nice pieces, but like with anything in the National Football League, it starts with the quarterback. But to me, that's insignificant right now. I don't even really care about that right now. Hey, my thing is, as an organization, what do you want to be? Yep. What do you want to project to your fan base? The type of franchise you want to be. It just, it seems like from the Bucs statement, they're going to ride with Jameis. That's their right. That's fine. But I'm just saying, with all this, we've been going over this, this domestic violence, this sexual assault thing. We've been talking about this for a few years now. And, when you see something like this in an NFL statement where it readily says that the victim's story is consistent, but you're only giving Jameis Winston 3 games.
Damien, is there anything within the investigation?
That's the part we need more answers.
Is there anything within the investigation, if you are the Bucs, that you are waiting on before you make the decision to let him go? I'm not. Like I said before, the fact that why do these things keep happening to you? Why are these things following you? I don't understand that. There's a lot of guys in this league that does things the right way. But why you? And I think, to me, like, if I'm talking to Jameis right now, that would be my question. Why are these things happening to you? Explain that to me. I mean, that's some hell of a luck right there, like bad luck, that these type of things keep following you. Why? Is there anything that you would need to see before you would proceed by maybe cutting Jameis Winston at this point?
I mean, well, first of all, I'm not the ultimate judge over anybody's life and or career, or what have you. So definitely want to, make that said. But just in terms of, developing, a little bit more understanding of the situation, if you were a CEO of the club, president of the club, general manager, what have you, I would definitely want to have a one-on-one conversation with Jameis where he is divulging in full transparency everything that happened. And to some extent, obviously, like we've been talking about now, I feel like that needs to come out, from his mouth to the public somewhat so we understand that and have a full understanding of everything. Not just insinuating that you've given up alcohol and things like that before making that conclusion and that determination. You also asked, Jack, where does the team go from here? And I understand that everything that we're talking about, Damien, is paramount in terms of the allegation and all of that. But I will say that, I did talk to Gerald McCoy before this suspension, had, come down and it was definitive today. And, he did underline that the team does have full faith in Ryan Fitzpatrick. And they also just talked about, look at what the Eagles were able to do with their backup. We would have to put ourselves in that mindset. But regardless, when he does come back from this 3-game suspension, we will welcome him with open arms. And that's what he did say.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like a whole new person.
Disclaimer, you will not become a whole new person. This is impossible. You might be able to join a gym or diet program, buy a new wardrobe, get hair implants, but your DNA and physical form will remain the same. Geico waives any and all liability if you attempt to become a new person, except a cyborg. If you choose to become a half-human, half-cybernetic organism with lasers for eyes, the Geico legal team would be cool with that, because, quote, laser eyes are pretty sweet. Pew, 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 end quote.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
We are back with the news that the league has suspended Jameis Winston 3 games for violating the personal conduct policy. We do want to give you the statement released by Jameis Winston. It says the NFL informed me today that I will be suspended for the first 3 games of the season. First and foremost, I would like to say I'm sorry to the Uber driver for the position I put you in. It is uncharacteristic of me, and I genuinely apologize. In the past 2.5 years of my life has been filled with experiences, opportunities, and events that have helped me grow, mature, and learn, including the fact that I eliminated alcohol from my life. I know I have to hold myself to a higher standard on and off the field, and that I have a responsibility to my family, community, and teammates to live above the platform with which God has blessed me. I apologize to my teammates, the Buccaneers organization, and fans for letting them down and for not being able to be out there for the first 3 games of the season. Although I am disappointed in the NFL's decision, I understand the NFL's process, and I embrace this as an opportunity to take advantage of the resources available to me to achieve the goals that I have for myself. I now look forward to putting this behind me, and I will continue to work hard every day to be a positive influence in my community and be the best person, teammate, and leader I can be. We do want to get Louis Riddick in on this conversation as well. Louis, what is your reaction to the news that Jameis has been suspended 3 games?
Well, my reaction is similar to Damien's and Josina's and Dan's and everybody sitting up there on the panel in this regard. Look, the league came out and said that they found that Jameis violated the personal conduct policy. The league came out and said that Jameis inappropriately touched an Uber driver in the car, and that they have evidence that he did, and that obviously, that's pretty much in black and white. That's sitting there in the statement, in the release. Well, then how the heck do you go from 6 games to 4 games to 3 games? Look, we talked about this a week ago when I was on. What are the degrees of sexual assault? What are the degrees of inappropriate touching of another human being? How do you determine that? What is your subjective criteria for going, well, you know what, that's not quite so bad. So, that's not really a 6-game suspension. That's a 4-game suspension. Or that's not really a 4-game suspension. That's a 3-game suspension. What you're doing when you do that kind of stuff, you're just crushing your own credibility. You're crushing the validity and the credibility of this personal conduct policy that was supposed to be put into place to eliminate these kinds of things, to make it black and white for players that, hey, look, when you mess up and we have evidence, this is what's going to happen to you, period. Point blank. It's not going to really necessarily, we're not going to continue to revise and react after the fact about, as to what's going on. We're going to be very upfront, be very transparent. We're going to be very consistent about these kind of things, because I'll tell you what pisses players off, what pisses fans off, and what pisses me off is when you do these kinds of things, when there's such a subjective nature to all this, to the point where you never really have an idea about what the punishment is going to be. It always takes forever for the decision to be made. It takes forever for the findings to be released. It takes forever. It's always a reactive, slow, snail-paced process, and that's what ticks people off. That's what makes people go, you know what? You really don't have any clue as to what you're doing. You really don't have any clue as to how to hand down punishment. You really don't have any clue as to how to hold players accountable. And then what happens is that's why there's always an appeal. There seems to always be something that drags the process out and then has us reacting to it in the manner with which we're reacting to it, which is, what's going on here? How did you arrive at that? I thought it was supposed to be this, and now you're telling me it's that. And you know what? When you get to the specifics of Jameis's comments about the incident, that's great that you've eliminated alcohol from your life, if that's what you need to do in order to keep your hands off of someone else. That's great. More power to you. There's plenty of people who can go out, have a good time, have a drink, get in an Uber, sit there, get dropped off at your destination, no problem. That's great. So to say that all of a sudden you've eliminated alcohol and that you've done all these good things after the fact, that's great too. And I'll tell you this, from a pure football standpoint, I've been a big supporter of Jameis. Anyone who's listened to me talk has said, can say this. I have been very supportive of this man. I've been someone who's been rooting for him, someone who's been looking forward to 2018 as being a big year for him. So no one can sit here and say I've been riding this guy or hating on Jameis or anything like that. But the kind of things that have continually surrounded him, and then his statement today, it's just weak. It just is, and it's annoying. It's annoying because I'm telling you what, the personal conduct policy to me, it's still lacking. It's still lacking in terms of its credibility. It's still lacking in terms of the amount of trust I personally would put into it that things are going to be handled the way they should be handled. I don't understand. I don't understand how. Someone's going to have to explain to me how this went from 6 games to 4 games to 3 games, or however it arrived at 3 games. And these high-level discussions, someone's going to have to explain to me how you came to that number. When you said as Josina read on air, you found that there was evidence that inappropriate behavior occurred in that Uber. How did you arrive at the conclusion then that instead of 6 games, it needed to be 3?
Yeah.
Got to tell me.
Yep. Lewis, I do want to ask you, you spent a lot of time in a front office in the NFL. If you were the Bucs, how would you handle this situation?
You know what? Look, at this point in time, I'm sure the Bucs know a lot more than me. Okay, they have much more invested in Jameis personally, emotionally, than I do. So from the outside, looking in right now, knowing what I know, through the media, through everything that we've heard about how he has conducted himself, look, I'd be having a real tough time. A real tough time, especially considering what is coming up in terms of his contract. All right, Jameis and I, if I was in a position of real significant power and decision making in Tampa Bay, we'd be having some tough conversations. Tough, real tough. Because look, this really isn't that hard, man. It really isn't that hard, considering what his history has been. And if I had still considered it something to where I could handle making the investment in him in terms of drafting him number 1 overall, given what was surrounding him coming out of college and some of the things accusations that have been made concerning him and some of the decisions that he's made. If I still considered it, worthy of drafting him number 1 overall, and then you're getting yourself caught up in this kind of situation, those conversations would be ugly. They'd be ugly and they'd be tough and they'd be real, and they should be. I need to know exactly. This is tough for me, and I don't mean to sit here and kind of like try and ride the fence, because my inclination would be to cut the cord and be like, I've had enough. At some point in time, you have to draw the line. At some point in time, and someone on the panel referred to it, referenced it as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as an organization. And I said this, when we go way back and talking about all the other domestic violence issues that have surrounded the league over the past couple of years. At some point in time, as a representative of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and ownership itself, you have to say, this is what we are, this is what we stand for, this is what we'll tolerate, and this is what we won't, regardless of what position you play, where we drafted you, how much money we have invested in you, regardless. We cannot tolerate X, Y, and Z. We just won't, because that's not who we are. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've done. If you do this, these are deal breakers for us. They just are. And I know there's going to be lots of people saying, well, you know what? Well, you don't really know what he did in there. And obviously the league feels as though it wasn't worthy of a 6-game suspension. So why are you going to be so hard on him? Why are you hating on the man? Why aren't you being more fair? You know what? Look, everyone can draw the line where they want. This one would be tough for me. We would be having some very, very real conversations. Let me just put it that way.
Lewis, great stuff, and we really do appreciate you weighing in on this. Josina, I want to ask you is there any other domestic violence situation that you would perhaps look at to compare this to with regards to the league going with the 3-game suspension instead of the 6? Is there anything specific that you would think about, or why this one?
No, nothing jumps to mind, because in the Ray Rice case, it was with his then fiance. There was familiarity there. Ezekiel Elliott, he had an association with this woman. Adrian Peterson case was involving his child. So all of these different things. There's nothing that is exactly similar to the situation, at least for me, that I immediately recall in regards to this Jameis Winston incident. But a couple things that was kind of running through my mind when I was listening to Riddick and also Adam Schefter, and just through this panel discussion that we've had, is one, that Jameis Winston is 24. He is 24, and it's just like, wow, everything that I'm hearing, it is a disappointment with all of the promise and blessings that you've been given to have this opportunity for this to happen. But at the same time, so much of your future is ahead of you. So I do want to say, as bad as this is, and for me, this is an egregious thing to have happened, with there being some type of admission that something inappropriate happened, and there is no excusing that in any uncertain terms. But he does have the ability to try to turn it around from here. And I do think, Damien and Dan, that includes having, full accountability and full transparency of what happened. And maybe it doesn't have to be to the media. Maybe it doesn't have to be us. But it definitely should come to your, the person that it happened to, your employer, and your higher power.
I just think there's a lot behind the scenes here. I think, to Lewis's point, the Buccaneers probably do know more than we do or will. The NFL probably knows more than we do or will. And it may be that you've reached a point in this situation, if you're the NFL and if you're Jameis Winston, where you say, look, we could dig into details, we could dig into he said, she said, but none of that's as important as this, which is this needs to be the level of responsibility we take here. I, Jameis Winston, need to stand up and say, I'm taking responsibility. I accept the punishment. The NFL needs to say, whatever else went on, this is the punishment that we've come to. Criticize us all you want. This is what we think is right. Once we start digging into the details of the behind the scenes, things get obviously sketchy and questionable, and you can get in a position of being irresponsible with how you handle certain things like that. So it may be that, to your point, that we never find out the exact details of what went on that night, but if the Buccaneers have to their satisfaction and they're standing by him, then that's their decision.
And I just want to make this other point. Louis Riddick had said, maybe there's an issue with the policy. I personally don't think there's an issue with the policy. It's about really sticking to the policy. And if there are mitigating and aggravating circumstances, then explaining what those aggravating and mitigating circumstances are.
Welcome back to NFL Live. Again, we are reacting to breaking news right now that Jameis Winston has been suspended 3 games for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy. Dan, I want to get you back to this statement from the NFL. What part of this stands out to you?
The part that says the driver's account of the incident was consistent and credible. I'm reading now. As a result, the investigation had concluded that Winston violated the personal conduct policy by touching the driver in an inappropriate and sexual manner without her consent, and that disciplinary action was necessary and appropriate. The reason this stands out to me is because if it's 3 games and not 6 per the baseline in the policy, there should be mitigating factors. And if there's a mitigating factor, it could be that it's murky. We weren't able to conclude that her account was consistent and credible, et cetera. But they have concluded that her account was consistent and credible. They have concluded that he touched her in an inappropriate and sexual manner. And I guess that's the thing. What's the reason to get it down from 6 games to 3? Now, the answer may be one that they don't want to tell us for whatever reason. And I think this gets to the issue of why in the world the league wants to be in this investigation business in the first place, because
which still doesn't make it right, particularly when that type of statement is made, right?
But my point is, like, if you're the NFL, you want to be in the position where you're talking about, well, is what Ezekiel Elliott did twice as bad as what Jameis Winston did, and do we have enough evidence to support this, and do we have enough evidence to support that? It's a mess, and obviously it's one of, in this case, of the players making. But in terms of people out there watching and saying, why is it 6 games and not 3? I think that's going, or why is it 3 games and not 6? I think that's going to be a lingering question here. And, I would think it would behoove the league to give some answers.
That's really the 2 points I had. 6, not, why 6, why 3 and not 6? That's consistency for the NFL. And what do the Tampa Bay Buccaneers stand? What do they want to represent? How they want to represent themselves? What do they want to stand for? Again, these things have been following this young man for a while now, for a long time. Why? Why is that? That's the issue. That's the central issue that I have with Jameis Winston right now. Why do these type of incidences keep following you around?
And the only other thing I want to say is just the consistency of the league. Josh Brown getting 1-game suspension with the domestic violence-related incident, and he has 3 here.
Again, we do have the breaking news that Jameis Winston has been suspended 3 games for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy. We want to get a final thought from our Damien Woody here in just a second. We want to see through the offseason, these are the notable players who are facing suspension. You see Edelman there, Ingram, Thomas Davis with 4 games as well, Burfict, and now Winston with those 3. Damien, now that you've had a second to think about the suspension handled down today by the NFL, where do you stand as far as what the Bucs should do in the 3-game suspension?
Well, I didn't mince any words earlier in the show, and I still feel the same way. I think the Bucs should cut him.
Yep.
I just feel like, again, I'm going to say, why does this pattern of behavior continue to follow Jameis Winston? Explain that to me. I don't want to hear anything about alcohol. There's a whole lot of people out here who, go out and have a good time, but they know how to conduct themselves accordingly. Why can't you? There's a pattern of behavior here that if I'm the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I would not be comfortable with. It would not be acceptable. So I'll make a move.
Ryan! I don't know how else to say this, so I'll just say it.
What is it, Linda?
I think we should see other people.
Are you breaking up with me? On a roller coaster?
Well, we do have a lot of fun. Maybe we should stay together.
An emotional roller coaster? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I just need a little me time.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.